Today, interstate migration, myth versus reality. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Well, there's been a lot written in recent times about what is happening with regard to people moving from one state and territory to another. And recently, the ABS released their internal migration data, which looks at the movements between states, territories and capital cities to December 2020. It's worth noting they define net migration as a difference between arrivals and departures. It can be positive, with more arrivals than departures, or negative, with more departures than arrivals. Now, a word of caution is in order. What they're doing at the moment is releasing a temporary publication in response to COVID-19 and the heightened interest in internal migration data. The quarterly interstate migration component is released later and in greater detail in national, state and territory population every 3 months. The quarterly internal migration data released in this particular series are provisional, and they should therefore only be used to provide just more timely insights on the internal migration patterns during COVID-19, and should not be necessarily used in the compilation of more complete data used, for example, for benchmarking. The commentary, though, is based on rounded data, meaning that figures less than 1,000 are rounded to the nearest 10, figures over 1,000 are rounded to the nearest 100. And internal migration is the movement of people across a specific boundary within Australia involving a change in place of usual residence. It can't be directly measured and is instead estimated using administrative data. The internal migration data is based on aggregated Medicare change of address, postcode actually, provided by Services Australia. It's supplemented by aggregated Department of Defence change of address data, as military personnel generally do not interact with the Medicare system. And internal migration data from the 5-yearly census is used to calibrate the Medicare and Defence data. When producing estimated resident population, Medicare data received for one quarter is actually used to estimate migration for the previous quarter, and that assumes that on average the time between a person moving and registering a change of address is 3 months, which has proven to be the best time lag for estimating the population. That quarterly lag assumption is reviewed after each census, by the way. And consistent with this, the Medicare change of address information used to calculate those provisional internal migration estimates are also lagged by 3 months. For example, March 2021 quarter moves are used to reflect moves in the December 2020 quarter. As with estimated residential population, it is likely that some moves recorded in the publication occurred in the following quarter. And while there may be some level of recent behavioural change due to COVID-19 in terms of updating an address with Medicare, there is no statistical way to quantify it. The Medicare source of data is assigned to a state or territory and Greater Capital City Statistical Area, or the GCCSA, for a person's departure and arrival locations based on the postcode of their residential addresses as registered with Medicare. Postcodes are assigned wholly to a state or territory, and the GCCSA based on what they call best fit. Where a postcode is split between two areas, it is assigned to the area that contains the majority of that postcode's population. So with that out of the way, let's actually look at the data. What they say, in summary, 104,800 people moved interstate in the 3 months to the end of December 2020. That's 3,900 less compared with December 2019, December quarter. Capital cities had a net loss of 10,600 people from internal migration, compared with a net loss of just 3,800 for the December quarter 2019. In the December quarter, the 104,800 people that moved, that was 28,500 or 37% more than the number who moved in the previous quarter, and 3,900 or 4% less than in the December 2019 quarter. The number of interstate movers in the December 2020 quarter was the lowest for a December quarter since 2015. But this is where it really gets interesting. Queensland gained the most people from net interstate migration, up 9,800 over the December 2020 quarter, while Victoria lost the most, down 6,500. Victoria actually had the largest change in net migration, from 3,700 people in the previous quarter, positive, to minus 6,500 people in the December 2020 quarter. That was a result of departures, 17,100 up to 25,000, increasing, more than arrivals, 13,400 to 18,500. In the December 2020 quarter, there was a net loss of 10,600 people from Australia's greater capital cities through internal migration. Now, that's smaller compared with the previous quarter, which was down 11,200, and a much larger net loss than in the December 2019 quarter, which was down 3,800. The net loss was a result of 55,400 arrivals, which was up from the 41,800 in the September quarter, and from 66,000 departures, up from 51,100 to non-capital city areas. Brisbane gained the most people through net internal migration, up 4,800, while Sydney lost the most, down 9,300 in the December quarter. Brisbane also had the largest change in net migration, increasing from 3,200 in the previous quarter to 4,800 in the December quarter. The next largest change was in Sydney, from positive 7,800 to negative 9,300. Now, across New South Wales, there was a net loss of 5,300 people from internal migration in the December 2020 quarter, compared with a loss of 4,100 people in the previous quarter and 6,800 in the December 2019 quarter. Interstate arrivals increased from 19,000 in the previous quarter to 25,400 in the December quarter, while departures increased from 22,100 to 30,600. December 2020 quarter arrivals and departures were at their highest for a quarter since December 2019. In net terms, New South Wales only gained people from Victoria, up 1,000, and lost most to Queensland, down 4,600. And within Greater Sydney, there was a net loss of 9,300 people from Greater Sydney in the December 2020 quarter, compared with 7,800 in the previous quarter. The net loss in the December 2020 quarter was the highest net loss for a quarter since December 2017. Sydney had net losses of 5,400 people to the rest of the state and 3,900 interstate. In Victoria, there was a net loss of 6,500 people from internal migration in the December 2020 quarter, compared with a loss of 3,700 people in the previous quarter and a gain of 2,700 in the December 2019 quarter. The net loss in the December quarter was the largest net loss since March 1994, down 8,500. Interstate arrivals increased from 13,400 in the previous quarter to 18,500 in the December 2020 quarter, while departures increased from 17,100 to 25,000. December 2020 quarter arrivals were at the highest for a quarter since the December 2019 quarter, and departures were at their highest since March 1993. In fact, in net terms, Victoria did not gain people from any state or territory and lost most to Queensland, down 4,300. And in Greater Melbourne, in net terms, there was a loss of 8,500 people in the December 2020 quarter, compared with 7,400 in the previous quarter. The net loss in the December 2020 quarter was the highest since the series began in 2001. And Melbourne had net losses of 4,200 people to the rest of the state and 4,200 interstate. Now let's look at Queensland, because there was a net gain of 9,800 people from internal migration in the December 2020 quarter, compared with gains of 7,200 people in the previous quarter and 6,900 in the December 2019 quarter. The net gain in the December quarter was the largest net gain since the December 2003 quarter at 10,100. Interstate arrivals increased from 22,300 in the previous quarter to 30,400 in the December 2020 quarter, while departures increased from 15,100 to 20,600. December 2020 quarter arrivals were at their highest for a quarter since the December 2018 quarter, and departures were at their highest since December 2019. In net terms, Queensland gained the most people from New South Wales, up 4,600, and lost only to Western Australia, down just 100. Across Greater Brisbane, there was a net gain of 4,800 people in the December 2020 quarter, compared with 3,200 in the previous quarter. Brisbane had net gains of 780 people from the rest of the state and 4,000 interstate. The net gain in the December 2020 quarter was the largest from interstate migration since December 2002. Now let's look at South Australia, where there was a net gain of just 130 people from internal migration in the December 2020 quarter, compared with a gain of 80 people in the previous quarter and a loss of 1,000 in the December 2019 quarter. The net gain in the December quarter was the largest net gain since September 1991, up 160. Interstate arrivals increased from 5,200 in the previous quarter to 7,100 in the December 2020 quarter, while departures increased from 5,100 to 6,900. December 2020 quarter arrivals were at their highest for a quarter since the December 2018 quarter, and departures were at their highest since December 2019. In net terms, South Australia gained the most people from New South Wales, up 260, and lost the most to Queensland, down 390. And across Greater Adelaide, there was a net loss of 250 people for Greater Adelaide in the December quarter, compared with 330 in the previous quarter. Adelaide had net losses of 106 people to the rest of the state and 90 interstate. And in Western Australia, there was a net gain of 1,200 people from internal migration in the December quarter, compared to a gain of 630 in the previous quarter and a loss of 1,000 people in the December 2019 quarter. The net gain in the December quarter was the largest net gain since March 2013, up 1,600. Interstate arrivals increased from 6,500 in the previous quarter to 8,900 in the December 2020 quarter, while departures increased from 5,900 to 7,700. December 2020 quarter arrivals were at their highest for a quarter since the December 2013 quarter, and departures were at their highest since December 2009. In net terms, Western Australia gained the most people from Victoria, up 470, and lost only to the ACT, down 110. And across Greater Perth, there was a net gain of 1,800 people, with a comparison of 1,400 in the previous quarter. Perth had net gains of 530 people from the rest of the state and 1,300 interstate. And down in Tasmania, there was a net gain of 300 people from internal migration in the December 2020 quarter, compared with gains of 180 people in the previous quarter and 390 in the December 2019 quarter. Interstate arrivals increased from 2,600 in the previous quarter to 3,800 in the December 2020 quarter, while departures increased from 2,500 to 3,500. December 2020 quarter arrivals were at their highest for a quarter since December 2018, and departures were at their highest since December 2011. In net terms, Tasmania gained the most people from New South Wales, up 290, and lost most to South Australia, down 120. And across Greater Hobart, there was a net loss of 90 people in December 2020, compared with 160 in the previous quarter. As a result, Hobart had net losses of 20 people to the rest of the state and 80 interstate. Up in the Northern Territory, there was a net loss of 300 people from internal migration in the December quarter, compared with losses of 130 people in the previous quarter and 1,100 in the December 2019 quarter. Interstate arrivals increased from 3,000 in the previous quarter to 4,100 in the December 2020 quarter, while departures increased from 3,200 to 4,400. December 2020 quarter arrivals were at their highest for a quarter since the December 2018 quarter, and departures were at their highest since December 2019. In net terms, the Northern Territory gained the most people from Victoria, up 170, and lost most to Queensland, down 280. And across Greater Darwin, there was a net gain of 260 people, compared with 10 in the previous quarter. Darwin had a net gain of 430 people from the rest of the territory, and a net loss of 170 interstate. And finally, looking at the ACT, there was a net gain of 700 people from internal migration in the December 2020 quarter, compared with a loss of 140 people in the previous quarter and a gain of 50 in the December 2019 quarter. The net gain in the December 2020 quarter was the largest net gain since the December 2010 quarter, up 1,200. Interstate arrivals increased from 4,100 in the previous quarter to 6,600 in the December 2020 quarter, while departures increased from 4,300 to 5,900. December 2020 quarter arrivals were at their highest for a quarter since the December 2018 quarter, and departures were at their highest since December 2019. And in net terms, the ACT gained the most people from New South Wales, up 480, and lost only to Queensland, down 240. So we see a very interesting set of trends here. First, significant movements away from our major capital cities of Sydney and Melbourne, and specifically moving to Queensland. Secondly, a significant drift from those major urban centres into the regional areas as well. And also some movement back to the west, whereas a year ago it was going in reverse. So this is a very interesting leading indicator of potential supply and demand dynamics relating to property prices. In fact, I use this data that I've just gone through in my models to try and better forecast potential demand across the states and across the regions. And if this is correct, what it means is that we will see stronger demand for property, particularly in Queensland. Well, we're already seeing that in my surveys. And there will be some weakness in demand, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne. And that weakness is often focused, for example, in the units part of the market. So this is another lens on the dynamics of what's going on. And the interesting question for me ahead will be whether, in fact, people turn around and migrate back to the city. Well, given the announcement today that Sydney is starting to hunker down a bit because of the latest coronavirus outbreak, I suspect that people will continue to want to move away from the centres of town and to the regional areas in Melbourne and Sydney. But I also think this movement to Queensland will continue, and in fact the data from my surveys suggests more people are considering moving to the sunshine and moving out of the smoke. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.